Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this video. We are going to be doing an action figure review today. We've got the Black Series original Sandtrooper and we're going to be taking a look and doing a quick review. If you're new here, leave a like on the video if you enjoy it and do subscribe to this channel for plenty of the similar content to come. We've got more action figure reviews, diorama builds, other creative projects, that sort of thing, and they're pretty regular, so do subscribe and you will never miss a beat. So let's jump into it. What are you going to get out of the box? So first of all, the great thing about the Sandtrooper is he did come, and does come I guess, with a lot of great accessories. As obviously one of the Stormtroopers with more attachments or kind of more going on, kind of can't have the Sandtrooper without at least, you know, the backpack and an extra blaster rifle, but they've really kind of gone the extra mile. So you do get the original just standard Stormtrooper blaster, and this is the older kind of build of it, so it's completely black and quite rigid. It's not kind of the kind of plastic they've used on the newer ones where there's a little bit of give to it to help you mold it into the hands. And what you'll find with this Sandtrooper is that the hands they have like a death grip on the older figures. It's kind of like the same plastic they use on the rest of the figure, so like whereas with the new ones you can kind of pry the hands open and bend them, and then they all slowly bend back and you can kind of get the rifle in that time, or the blaster in that time. These don't have that, so you really do have to get in there and wrestle with the hands. I do suggest kind of maybe using a multi-tool to help pry them open at times to kind of get your blaster in the hands. Second of all, we have this really awesome looking blaster rifle that's kind of like a machine gun looking rifle. As you can see, some awesome detail, especially considering this was the original Black Series line, so this is the first figures they ever released. Some gold there, some silver or kind of grey amongst the black on the barrel, brown stock. Then you've got this kind of carry strap, which is cool, with some gold clasps on it, so that's really cool. Lovely to see, you know, a different weapon we don't always see. And obviously with the strap, that's great because you can put it over his shoulder, which is really cool. It's kind of like the Bosk blaster that has that carry strap. It's, you know, works in the same way. Then we've got the kind of, again, kind of like MG42 looking blaster rifle, you know, kind of heavy repeating blaster, with the folded up kind of bipod that doesn't actually fold out. It would be nice if that folded out, but you know, you can't win them all. Again, pretty standard, completely black at the back, but it does have some kind of silver discoloration at the front on the barrel and the bipod, so that's cool. And then we kind of move on to the figure where he has this, you know, really funky looking backpack that's got a lot going on. You know, for the life of me, I can't imagine what most of the stuff does other than, you know, help you survive, or maybe it's a, you know, there's a radio pack on there or something like that. But you know, for a Sandtrooper, and you know, obviously the famous pauldron, the bright orange pauldron, and he's got some kind of ammo pouches going on all around, so plenty going on. With the backpack, it does, as you can kind of see with this piece, it does come up over the pauldron, again kind of goes up under the arm, as you can kind of see here, and then obviously if you pop the head off, it would go on top of the shoulders, and then you pop the head back on. The backpack does pop off, it's just a single peg, so obviously you can use this figure and display this figure without the backpack, which in some respects you might want to, because it's quite bulky, and obviously it's quite particular scenes and scenarios where he would be wearing the backpack. But to be honest, for the most part, I think the backpack is just very part of the look, and it's, you know, it's really cool, so you can just pop that back on there nice and easy, and I think it looks awesome. It just suits him. I really think that they should re-release a Sandtrooper with the updated molds and technology on articulation, and obviously like the paint applications and stuff like that would be better just by default, but they're pretty good. You know, it's got that weathered sand wash, which when you consider for the time, considering this was the first time the line was brought to life, you know, it's pretty good. And obviously without the kind of sandy discoloration, the Sandtrooper just wouldn't be the same. Now if you kind of use the Remnant Trooper body, you know, in that kind of discoloration they've got now as an example, you know, that weathering is immaculate. So it's really cool. And if they kind of re-released that and did, you know, use the Remnant body and the this kind of sandy Remnant weathering and then gave it all the attachments, I think it would go down a treat with fans. Definitely would with me. So having a look at him there, obviously looks fantastic. Now for the purpose of talking about his articulation and things like that, let's take the backpack off so that it doesn't get in the way as much. Okay, so obviously the look, I mean, you know, he's a Sandtrooper, iconic. If you can get your hands on these, you should. They're very difficult to get your hands on because they were the original line, and obviously that was released a long time ago, and they haven't re-released it since. But as you can kind of see, you can see on these older builds that there's a lot of the kind of pegging showing through, and you're going to kind of see as we talk about articulation where, you know, on the older builds there just is a lot of, you know, there's a lot of jankiness that has since been worked on by Hasbro, and as much as I can appreciate, like, this Sandtrooper is awesome, I'm so glad I could finally find one, you know, and I ended up getting a good price as well, which was really nice. But in terms of, you know, this being an older build, you're going to expect some of the things to kind of be, you know, kind of old school, like the helmet, for example. You can kind of see from the older helmets like how differently they did the decals and stuff back then, and you know how they kind of did the molds and stuff like that. Now obviously there's no head sculpt underneath these on the old ones. If there's a helmeted character, it's just the ball and socket. So nothing like the newer ones where they've kind of started using a blank head under there to kind of scale the helmet properly. But he looks fantastic in terms of paint application. It's not amazing because obviously this is an older figure. If I can get that in focus for you, you can kind of see the bleeding in places like the hands. You can probably see it in various places. There's little bits. It's not terrible. It's just like you can kind of see on the older builds where they weren't as maybe mindful as they are now. But obviously he looks fantastic, and in terms of the design, they were kind of, you know, they were hindered by the time in which these were being released, and since then action figures have come on a long way. In terms of his articulation, moving on to articulation, I mean, you know, we've already established he's a great looking figure despite the time he was released and, you know, the limitations there. He's a Sandtrooper. For me, he's one of my favourite trooper variants of all time. You know, the New Hope, them on Tatooine, and these aren't the droids you're looking for. You know, that sort of scene. They're just iconic. In terms of articulation, though, you are going to see a lot of kind of jankiness because of the fact that this is the original. Toe point pretty good. Toe point upwards pretty good, as you can kind of see. Knees 90 degrees. So at the top of the legs, he does struggle to kind of get his legs wide open, and you'll kind of see in here the kind of pivot on the thigh. That's kind of what you're supposed to do with the older ones, whereas now, you know, the legs are a lot easier to move. There's one thing I will say about this figure is, on these older figures especially, the legs are very bowed, and he's surprisingly difficult to get to stand up in a pose that's natural, and just kind of in general. You can kind of fight around, and obviously depending on where you are, but, you know, for me to get him balanced because of the way his legs kind of seem to be unnatural, it's kind of difficult, and you have to kind of, you know, throw him off balance in certain places. But obviously if you're using a wire for some photography, you can kind of fix that and sort that right out. In terms of a display, obviously, unless it's a dynamic pose you're looking for, he'll be fine. I'm sure once you've got that standing pose set with the weapon pose you want him in, he'll be okay. But he is quite difficult to get to stand. In terms of legs coming up, he can sort of come up, and he goes back just a tiny bit. At the hips, no pivot at the hips, but sort of in the mid torso, he will swivel. He will crunch a little bit, and if you if you bend him over from the legs as well, he will crunch quite a lot. But in terms of like the crunch from the abs, that's pretty good. Back, pretty good as well. And again, you've got to consider when this was made. This was the original line, so obviously not everything's going to be fantastic. In terms of the hands, I mean, if you can really fight it with the wrist bend, and he's meant to kind of, if I show you this in focus, he's meant to be able to curl that wrist. He kind of can, but you have to fight it. At the elbow, you'll get 90, and you will get a full curl because of the double joints. Obviously, you've got the peg showing, which on the newer figures they try not to show as much, but it's nice that he has that double bicep. He has that extra curl, because especially like with his range of weapons, it gives him just a more range of motion. In terms of the shoulder, the pauldron, the shoulder pauldron kind of doesn't lift, so you can't get him to 90 because it's stuck here. If you can kind of see that you can't get it up, and obviously with this pauldron, that's loose, which is good. It means it doesn't restrict, but again, you're going to be restricted by the arm in general. In focus there, and then obviously the pauldron, you can't go much higher anyway. But in terms of, like I said, I mean, you got to give it the benefit of the doubt. In terms of the head, he will tilt quite well side to side, back and forward. It's kind of like it's the exact same head as the Disney Park exclusive kind of figures that they released, way later. But again, he can come all the way around 360 because it's just a peg in there. It's just ball and socket. So in terms of articulation, it's not bad. It's okay. And when you consider if you're doing toy photography, you can really just get in there and work it into the position you want, and then put it on a wire or something to kind of keep it in the balance or position you need. So that's okay. From a display point, it might be a little bit difficult to kind of get him to stand or be natural looking all the time. And then obviously from the standpoint, like I've said, of when it was made, like it's pretty good for the time. In terms of versatility, he's a stormtrooper, so that buys him a little bit more versatility than maybe a regular character, because he's a trooper, he's part of an army, he can technically show up anywhere. Obviously he's weathered in this kind of sandy look, as you can kind of see with me working with the foot. You've got to really work how to get him to stand up. He is weathered in that sandy look, so you could argue that he's very limited in the sense that it's for a sandy planet, but it's a stormtrooper. And one of the good things about this is, if you consider, they haven't really differed from the original shapes and molds of the Black Series line, and like for example the figures like the Stormtrooper, since the beginning. So things like these rifles you can use on other troopers and with other troopers. The backpack I'm sure can be used with other troopers, and like I said, you can take the pauldron off. You just have to pop the head off and take it down around the arm. So if you wanted to, you could interchange things, and that's one of the great things about having accessories like this. I really wish that there was more accessories coming as standard with figures, because they're interchangeable. It's not the fact of, well, why does a regular Stormtrooper need a load of different accessories just because. It's more the fact of, Well, when you have them, you can start adding them to the collection in different places and use them all over. If I'm, for example, if I'm using the layer figure, but I've got like the the blockade runner rebel, he has like the data chip with the Death Star plans on it that you can put in Leia's hands for a scene. So there's a lot of possibilities when you just add accessories to figures. So I'm a big fan of that. In terms of versatility, though, like, you could argue that he is a little bit limited in the fact that it's a sand planet, but I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt because it's a stormtrooper, and as I mentioned, all of the things that come with it. And I think that if you can get your hands on these, you definitely should. For those reasons, like I said, with accessories and the look, it's very particular. Like, he would go fantastic in a scene with an incinerator trooper or a remnant trooper and stuff like that. You could use him in shots with Mando. You don't have to limit him to kind of the A New Hope kind of scenes we've seen him in. Like I say, he's a trooper, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, where I might not in other places. So overall, I mean, as much as he's an original figure, and he does have certain issues and limitations because of that. I think the pros do outweigh the cons to put him up there. I would put him at an 8 out of 10 just because of the relevance. He's an iconic figure. He's got great accessories. He's a trooper. You can use him in many different places. And definitely I would recommend picking one up if you can, because they're harder to come by, especially at a good price. But I definitely would pick one up if you can. It's this sort of thing that as well. For example, if I could get my hands on a Dewback as well, like I would, I wasn't collecting when the kind of Dewback and Sandtrooper deluxes were coming out and that sort of stuff. So it would be really nice to see them re-release them, but it might be a figure that just stays the kind of grail that it is because it's an original figure. So definitely pick one up if you can. Would be my advice. So I hope this was informative, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this review. There's plenty more coming, so subscribe and you won't miss a beat. Take care, guys, and I'm going to see you in the next one.